Back in Las Vegas, Stratosphere, maybe you've heard of it. I've actually never been on the rides directly on top of there. There's like 3 or 4, I don't know if you call them roller coasters, but amusement park style rides up there. Never been on them. Need to make that happen. It's really bright out here. Hopefully you don't mind me wearing sunglasses while we're having a nice chat here. Vegas in August. I don't know if you can see that, but that says 109. Right, so I thought it would be a good time to check in with y'all, maybe run some numbers just to see how we've done so far. So I have my records here. Once again, I use an app called Poker Journal. I don't really recommend it because it seems the developer is no longer putting out updates for his app that he's built. And I get like these weird warning messages that say the app needs to be updated and it may not work with a future edition of iOS. Any of them will do. You just need the basics. You need to just have some sort of an app that keeps track of your wins, losses, hours you played, and location, stakes. All the apps should have that basic input. You can set a filter to check out your results, you know, by stakes or by location. So I have a filter here called Vlog Tally, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it on here, so maybe I'll put it right here, somewhere down there. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. As you can see, across both cash games and tournaments, we've won a total of $34,260. So there's 3 main numbers that we want to think about here in these results. The first is the obvious one. That's the total win-loss. And if we look at the cash games here, in the cash games we are up $36,433 so far. That's the obvious number, pretty straightforward. The second number is the hours that we've played, and that number is 488. So if you think about from October to August 1st, which is the date today as I'm recording this, 488 hours is not that many hours, considering the time span that we're talking about here. When I was playing poker full-time before I started vlogging, my goal was to get somewhere around 150 hours a month. And I didn't achieve that every month. I think 125 hours is pretty good. If you're consistently getting between 125, 150, maybe even 160 hours, I think that's pretty solid. I think if you're playing 1-2 or 1-3 and you're trying to get out of those stakes, you really want to hit that 150 hour, maybe even more. But if you're playing 2-5 or 5-10, I think that's a good number of hours, the 125 to 150 range per month. So 488 hours, let's see, November, December, March, April, and July. That's 9 months. Sorry for the wind here. So if we were to take our bottom of that range, 125 hours per month, and multiply that by 9 months, that's 1,125 hours. We should have 2.3 times the number of hours on record in a normal situation without vlogging. So $36,000, not exactly a super sexy number, but if you were to actually apply the number of hours that we were normally getting and apply those results to that number of hours, then that would be a much better result. And you know, you could probably be making a pretty solid living if you were consistently grinding out that amount of money. Now 488 hours is not exactly the long term. In fact, it's pretty tough to get to the long term in poker, and it's hard to really you know, directly apply that winnings amount to a longer stretch of time, because who knows, you could go through a pretty big downswing over the next 488 hours and hardly make any additional money. So you can't really tell. But you know, this is not an exact science. We're just trying to get a picture of what's been going on here on the blog and the results so far. So that's the 2 important numbers so far: the total winnings amount, the total number of hours, and the last important piece of information there is the hourly win rate. So as you can see in cash games, we are currently winning $74 an hour. I think that's a pretty solid number. I think that's great. I'm really happy with that number so far. Our stakes have varied from 1-2 no limit all the way up to 5-10-20 no limit. We have some 1-3, some 2-5, some 5-5, some PLO all mixed in there. Even if we were just to have a 5-10 win rate of $74 an hour, specifically in Las Vegas games where the majority of the play was at the Bellagio, which I don't think are the easiest 5-10 games to be found in the world, I think I'd be perfectly happy with that number, $74 an hour. So if you consider that we also have some 1-2 and 2-5 play in there, I think that's a pretty solid number. Overall, I think we've ran pretty well. I think we've ran slightly above average. You know, we've had that favorable flop come our way, I think, pretty frequently. And we definitely have not gone on too extended of a downswing. Maybe a small one over the course of, like, you know, a handful of sessions, but nothing drastic. So there you have it. That's the poker picture. That's the poker landscape, the poker story for me so far since I started vlogging. Those are the poker numbers. There's a lot of other numbers that we could discuss, particularly how many hours I put into making these vlogs and all the editing hours, the additional hours that this vlog requires. We can save that discussion for another little chat because, yeah, I just wanted this one to be about poker, but the picture needs to be clear, I think. Normally I would have way more than 488 hours on record since last October. Come August 1st, it should be pretty obvious that a lot of the poker hours have been taken away and replaced by vlogging hours, and I would for sure do it this way again, given the choice, because this has been a pretty fun ride so far, and it's been awesome to connect with all you guys and just you know, share the story of the grind. So one more quick thing here to mention while we're just touching on the topic of, you know, extracurricular vlog activities. Favorable apparel has just expanded. Something you guys have been asking for. Here it is, delivered. I don't want to sell too hard here on the videos because, yeah, I'm not a very good salesman by any stretch. So thanks for asking, and hopefully you guys dig these. I'm really liking this black one, but need a little bit of variety. So we got some gray action in there for you. All right, I'm sweating my ass off out here. Let's go find a poker game. Let's see who's playing poker out there in Las Vegas. At the Bellagio. So I don't have super high hopes for the quality of these 5-10 games over here. There's 2 games running, so we're gonna go see how many people are gambling, and we're gonna use the Wynn 2-5 games as a backup plan. But yeah, Tuesday early evening in August, not the highest of hopes. Just wrapping up the session over here at the Bellagio, which wasn't too long, but not too short. Maybe 2 to 3 hours, something like that. So I was playing in the must move game, which was actually pretty good. I was in there, yeah, like I said, for a couple hours or 2-3 hours, something like that. Got called to the main game, which looked semi-miserable. So decided to skip out on that one and gonna head over to the Wynn from here. Hi, can you put Andrew on the 2-5, please? Thanks a lot. So there's a couple interesting hands that developed over the 2 or 3 hours that we were playing. First interesting one, I opened up ace-4 of hearts in middle position to 30. The cutoff in the small blind call, so 3 ways to a flop. 9-8-4, rainbow, 1 heart. Small blind checks, I decided to check it, and the cutoff bet's 50. We both call, so still 3 ways to a turn card. Turns to ace of clubs, second club. So we make 2 pair here. This time the small blind leads out for $130. I think a flat call makes the most sense here, just to see what the guy behind me does. And I think a raise would be over-upping our hand a little bit. So I call, and the cutoff calls as well. So still 3 ways. 3 ways to a river card, which is an offsuit 5. This time the small blind checks. Now I feel pretty confident that I have the best hand here. So I'm gonna go for a bet and kind of size it as if I might have a misdraw or something like that. At least hope that that's what my opponents put me on. So I bet $390. Cutoff folds immediately and the small blind goes into the tank. So I'm hoping for a call here, and eventually he does decide on a call. I turn my hand over and he shows ace 10. So I guess I wasn't hoping for a call there, and not too sure what the small blind was thinking about there. So we're not going to win that one. All right, so next interesting hand, there is an early position limp. I look down at 2 aces in the small blind, and I raise it up to 40. The big blind calls and the limper calls, so 3 ways, 2 a flop. Flop comes 8-3 deuce with 2 hearts. I bet $80. The big blind calls and the limper folds. So heads up to a turn card, which is an offsuit 8. I decided to check it. The big blind puts out a bet of $150. Can't go anywhere, obviously, so I go ahead and make the call. River's a blank, offsuit 7. Check it over to him again, and this time he bets $400. I don't think I have any choice here. It kind of sucks that I have the ace of hearts in this spot, because that eliminates a bunch of the flush draw combos that you can have, or combo draw combos that you can have. But there's still all sorts of straight draws and other flush draws that you can have, and just seems unlikely that he has too many value hands in this spot. So I toss in the call, and he rolls over 10-8 offsuit. So we are not going to be winning in that hand either. So not running too good. Didn't run too good at Bellagio in the must-move game, and yeah, like I said, the main game was all regs. So decided to pack it up. Booked a loss of about $970, which kind of sucks because I got a bunch of premium hands in that game, and didn't really work out in my favor. So we're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see how the win looks. Probably end up in the 2.5, 1500 max over there. See if we can chip away at this this loss for today. Still grinding, staying on the grind. .51 in the AM. Not sure what time we got here. What time did we get here? I think I called here at like 9:45. Got here around 10 o'clock. So not too long of a session. Got here at 10, leaving at 2:41. That's 6 hours and 41 minutes according to my math. So there was lots of hands that I played that kind of resulted in like small to medium sized spots. Lots of hands where I would find like a ace queen or a king jack type holding, raise it up, either make a pair or don't make a pair, maybe get one street of value or just check it down, end up folding on the turn or something like that. There's so many of those hands that occur over a 6 to 8 hour session. And it's hard to kind of paint the picture sometimes when you play so many of these hands, but they don't really result in like, telling the story of a session. Those hands are definitely important too, but there's so many of them that how do you pick 1 or 2 or 3 to share in a vlog, because they're all so similar. So usually I just jump to the biggest hands that tell the story. So in the first hand, we look down at pocket 6s from early position, make a standard raise to 20. Oh, and by the way, we're playing 2-5, no limit hold'em, in for 1500. Starting this hand about 1500 effective, I think. There's a call to my left, and the middle position player makes it $100. He's also got a pretty big stack. I think he might even have me covered. I decided to make the call since I feel like we're playing deep enough. The player on my left folds, so we go heads up to a flop of king 7-6 with 3 spades, monotone board. I check it over to him, and he bets 110. I think playing this deep, I don't think it's too good to put in a raise here. Not too good of a situation if he ends up 3-betting the flop against us. I think if we end up getting it in for stacks for 1500 or 1400 effective here on this flop, I think a lot of times he's gonna have pocket kings, a flush. Best case scenario for us is going to be aces with the ace of spades, maybe ace king with the ace of spades, basically the same thing. So with that in mind, I just decided to call, see what happens on the next card. Next card is a total brick. I check it over to him, and this time he checks back, so super confident that I have the best hand here now. River seems like another brick. offsuit 9. Decided to go for big value here. I think the only way I'm gonna get paid is if he happens to have a 1 pair type hand and puts me on a missed draw. I think if he has pocket aces, or maybe ace king, then we can get some pretty good value, I think. So with that in mind, I bet 375. He doesn't think for too long and folds pretty quickly. So happy to win the pot. Always want to try and you know, go for max when you have a set, but didn't get the maximum this time. All right, next interesting hand comes with a button straddle on. There's an early position limp and I looked down at pocket jacks, raised it up to $40. The cutoff calls and the limper calls. So 3 ways to favorable flop of king, jack, 5 with 2 clubs. The limper checks, I think I bet $70, $70 or $75 on the flop. The player in position folds and the limper check raises. Interesting news. Puts in a check raise to 155, not too much bigger than a min raise. So pretty interesting spot because being in position, I would almost always flat here, just always having the option to put in another bet on subsequent streets. But versus this player in particular, I had been ISOing him a lot and you know, putting in some C-bets here and there, and also checking back with a lot of my ace-high type hands. There was several of those hands where I would have like ace queen and it would come king jack X and I would just kind of check it down as per, you know, standard line. So I think he was kind of aware of that, and he hadn't really been you know, check raising me ever before this. So that kind of led me to believe that his hand was a little bit stronger than average. So that information, that thought process led me to want to put in a 3-bet on the flop. So I make it $325 to go. He thinks for a while and then he calls. So at this point he has somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 behind. Turn is a great card. It's an offsuit 7. It doesn't change anything. So I feel like we have the virtual nuts here. I don't think he should ever have pocket kings. Limp calling pre-flop. So he checks it over to me, and this time I jam all in. I bet enough to cover his stack. I jam it all in there. He goes into the tank, thinks for a while, and then he decides on a call. So we're off to the river card in a pretty big size pot here, and the river card is a little sketchy. River brings a 3rd club in. I roll my hand over, and he goes ahead and he mucks his hand. Gives it the head shake, mucks his hand. So good news, we're gonna win the biggest pot of the night that I played. Usually when that's the case, you're gonna end up with a winning session. So we're into this game here at the Wynn for $1,500. We cash out for $27.88, I believe. At the Bellagio, I think we lost somewhere in the neighborhood of $930 or $970. I can't remember exactly, and I'm not gonna try and figure it out right now. $930, $970, one of those. So we end up with a profit on the day of somewhere in the neighborhood of $350, which I'm pretty happy with, considering how somewhat poorly the day started out, and considering that it's a Tuesday during the slowest time of the year for poker in Las Vegas. So that's gonna do it. It feels good to get back on the grind here and put in a proper session. So whatever that number was that we mentioned earlier in the day, tack on a few $100 more. The win rate probably does not improve, considering we played about 8 or 9 hours today and booked a win of $350. So the win rate does not improve, the dollar amount does improve, just grinding away. One other thing, it's been a little while since we've had some drone footage in the vlogs. The drone is currently in the repair shop, sadly. I would love to bust that thing out here, but it's currently pretty busted. Apparently it does not work too well when you first fly the drone into a tree over some concrete. Followed by flying the drone into a fence. So when when that happens, gotta send it off to the repair shop. But hopefully the drone will be back in my possession within the next couple of days. $200 worth of repairs later, but do it for the vlog, you know?